And we're live.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are raging with Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. They've got an all ages book, Misfitz Clubhouse, on Kickstarter right now. This is episode 61, and we are simulcasting to our Facebook groups as well as Geek Insider and Twitter. Make sure that you get over to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and share this out with your friends. And while you're doing that, we're going to throw our intro. We'll be right back. That's right, Raging with Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon.
Raging.
That's right, we are Raging with Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. Welcome, welcome. You guys are a little bit like rock and roll, steampunk, a little bit of everything. My goodness, I'm gonna throw a hard question at you guys, okay? Because Insymmetry Creations is a business, but you do a little bit of everything. Normally with small business, you have to answer to one master, but you do a little bit of everything. How in the world do you manage and manage your time, manage your business? I mean, these are a lot of people who are tuning in who want to hear this creative journey and really finally understanding that this is a business, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I would say a little bit of insanity and an even less bit of sleep is basically
A lot of
how we
coffee.
manage our time. Yeah, a lot of coffee. It's kind of how we manage our time. We don't try to do everything that we possibly can. A lot of it just kind of comes organically. Heirs of Isildur, which is our steampunk time travel series, kind of begat the medieval fantasy series, which was Tales from Nocturnia. I had already been a metal musician at that point, and that was where the music kind of brought itself in. Steph was mostly known as a short comic writer herself, and her first foray and where her name first came into the industry was doing short comics, and those short comics actually got her some really big gigs, like being able to be on panels at San Diego Comic-Con multiple years in a row. And when we put those things together, she already had the things she was doing and her strengths, and I had the things I was doing and my strengths, and we put them together and then created other things too. And the next thing you know, we've got this, I don't want to say big conglomerate, because big conglomerate makes it sound like we actually make money at what we do. But
Right. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
but we definitely have our hands out there in a lot of things.
I actually love that you asked that question, because we wanted to make sure that this was as legitimate as it could be. And so a lot of people don't realize, they think, oh, Matt and Steph, they just write comics together. No, it's an actual LLC. We have to do taxes every year. We have to do the boring stuff too that goes along with being small business owners. And it's nice when somebody can recognize it and go, okay, that this is a legitimate thing that you guys do. And fortunately, Matt has experience in project management in like the, some white collar world stuff that he used to do, which helps a lot, because and I'm just organized by nature. And so that fits really well together, but it's very difficult to do life, especially on opposite coasts. He's in Florida. I'm in California. I'm a busy mom. He's got a daughter that is in every conceivable activity known to man and is a soccer star. And he's referees soccer. And so we've got all these like life things that we have to try to figure out too. And so we get about that much sleep.
That is really difficult to manage, because especially, because of family, we see you guys on Facebook with the family doing things, and it's kind of funny here. I'm going to pull this out because my husband bought this for me. I was like, this is perfect. We're always seeing you at the conventions and stuff like that. You guys are dressed, you're coordinated, color
to the
coordinated, and all that,
nines. You guys
all
rock
that
it.
good stuff. And it's like, my God. I mean, it's like you guys are at a convention. It seems like, I don't know, twice a week or something. It's like, where's your cape? How the heck are you doing this? But, yeah. Okay. So no sleep, because there's business to be done. So you'll sleep when you're dead.
Pretty much. That's my motto.
Mm-hmm. So when did this comics journey specifically begin, and what in the world were you thinking? And I say this because I really only started my comics journey. I've been writing for like my entire life, but my comics journey started maybe about 2 years ago. And it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is coordinating so many things. So when you started, what the heck were you thinking, and what were some of the hurdles that you overcame to get to where you are now?
You can go first.
Yeah, I want to start with Steph.
It's actually a really good question, because I don't think that we were thinking, and that we just sort of fell into it. Because, you go, oh, it's easy. I mean, I wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid, and I was raising my kids and stay-at-home mom. And when they got old enough to be in school and I had time, I said, I really want to do this thing. I really want to actually write and have something that I can call my own. And actually, because I would run into people at the grocery store and they'd ask me what I was up to, and all I could say was stuff that my kids were up to, because I had no identity outside of them. And so I said, I want to write. And I realized that I wanted to do comics, and very quickly found out I don't know how to write a comic. So I had to research how to write a comic script and do all of this stuff. And so I started off small, like Matt was saying, with the one pagers, and Matt started off with creating airs and trying to get that in some sort of ebook format. And so when we met, we both were at the same point creatively, where we were going through some frustrations with some artists, which happens sometimes.
But not just kind of definite frustration. Definite
artists.
Yeah. To the point now where we see like the artists that I used to work with, and it's like a bad divorce or something. You see them like doing some of
I love those. I saw my ex at MegaCon.
Yeah.
The MegaCon.
Oh, we saw you see your ex at MegaCon, and I was laughing my butt off. I thought that was amazing.
I have so many work husbands. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This one did not end well. Yeah. So we kind of realized that we were at the same spot in life, and we thought, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to do this right. So.
Yeah, and for me, I was a musician for a long time. I was in a band that toiled in the underground. We put out like 5 CDs, did one tour in Europe, was signed on a record label out of Holland, and right when we were right just on the cusp of making it to the next level, that's when a lot of the record labels were consolidating because they couldn't understand how to deal with the digital media explosion. This is like 2007 to 2010. And one of the guys that was in the band had an opportunity to go back and rejoin the original band that he was in, which is a very popular, well-known band, like internationally known band. And he went back and rejoined them. We're still good friends, but he's like playing in front of 100,000 people every time they do a festival. And, it was great to see him do that, but I just got tired of dealing with the industry. And so I took about a 6 to 8 year break from writing at all. And then when I finally decided I was really going to get back into it, I wanted to play music, but I wanted there to be an additional backstory to it. And my life felt like a steampunk allegory, where I was like taking old things that were not used on my old band and repurposing lyrics and turning them into new songs. And I was like, well, I'm going to take this thing and make it into the literal, which was the steampunk storyline. And there were some iterations. The original iteration, Corey Steger, the late Corey Steger, who's on both albums, he and I had talked about doing one where there was like a shop and I was the front of house guy and he was the tech guy, which is exactly how we were in real life. But then he pulled back and he's like, look, this is your project. I don't want to be a face of the project because I don't want people getting it confused thinking this is Corey Steger's project. I want it to people to know it's yours. So it's like, I'm going to play on the album. I'm going to do everything that needs to be done there, but I want to pull back on that side. And once I kind of like got past that, because that kind of hurt at first, but I was like, I understood why he wanted to do that. We took the amalgamation of the two characters that we were going to have for us and turned it into a completely separate character, which is Michael Isildur, and the best parts of both of those characters. And I wrote the music, and I had an ebook. I had the entire thing written, the entire arc written. Then I was like, oh, I don't want it to be ebook. I want it to be a comic or an illustrated novel. And I got set up with an artist, and we started trying to put that together. We put out the first few issues of the original issues of Heirs of Isildur, which are complete collector's items now because they were like the most rudimentary illustrated novels that you could get. But that's one of the things that where Steph and I met. She actually got the first two copies of Heirs of Isildur 1 and 2 and the album, and I can let her explain her reaction there. But that was what caused us to, one of the things that caused us to actually start to work together, because I saw something she was doing, commented on it, thought it was really good. We both really liked the thing the other person was doing, but kind of fate was like, hey, I've got this thing that she really needs on her side, and I had something that she really needed on the, or vice versa. I had something she needed, she had something I needed. We just didn't really know it yet.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear your Steph side of that, though. Yeah.
So when he was telling me about his project, I could tell that he was kind of in this spot where it was going through a little bit of a transition. And so I was encouraging him, this really sounds like you need to do it as a comic, but if you're going to do it as a comic, you need to know, not need to know what you're doing, but you need to know what the industry is going to want, because indie comics, even when only being in it for a few months, I knew that this is an industry that, it's like they're not going to embrace something that's really, really different unless there's a purpose for it. So when he gave me the first two, I read the issues and I really liked the story, but I was blown away because I'm like, I have never seen a comic that has an album that goes along with it that isn't just, I mean, I have seen things before where it's said, oh, here's a soundtrack that you can listen to while you read. And it's other people's music. It's just kind of a listening guide. But this is music that he created specifically for the comic that give you insight into the characters. And so to read the comic and read, to learn more about this character, go and listen to this song on, or see the video on YouTube, and there's an actual video. I was blown away. I'm like, there is nobody that's doing that right now. This is so cool. There are things that are similar, but exactly like that, there's nobody else doing that. And so that was what I was really impressed with.
That was really cool too, because to what Matt was saying earlier, is that it kind of, all of these things came together very organically, because your history in music and making music and things, and then having that writing background. But speaking of writing, okay, Steph, so you said that you started off with short comics and stuff. I know my struggle with finding a standardized script format for comics is impossible, because everybody I ask says, yeah, as long as you can communicate with your artist, it's fine. Yeah. And I'm like,
says somebody who's never spoken to an artist.
I need structure. I need, and then I realized it's like, okay, well, I can, for me personally, I can take things from movie scripts. I've seen movie scripts and stage plays and things like that. It was like, okay, how can I incorporate that? But there were like so many other elements to a comic book that don't apply to, let's say, a movie script, because you're looking at a static page. You have to consider a page turn.
Movement is prohibited.
Movement, you're not, you cannot rely on an actor to work this out based on their interpretation, So what was that like for you with your scripting journey?
Oh, it was way more complicated than, just like you were saying. There's things that you don't realize. And when I first started realizing, okay, this is like a movie script. It's like a screenplay. It really isn't, like you were saying, because you can't have a character in one panel walk across the room, answer the phone, have a conversation, hang up the phone, go and do that. It has to be laid out a certain way, and it has to be laid out a certain way that's going to be interesting. Otherwise, somebody is going to get turned off right away and throw the book aside. But page turns are so important, and those are the things you don't realize. And then having, you know, making sure that the characters, you know, the character that speaks first is on the left, and how long is this dialogue going? Is the page gonna get filled with speech balloons, and you're not going to be able to even see the art? All those little things. And it's different with every artist. Every artist communicates differently. Some want to be micromanaged. Some want you to tell them to the nth degree exactly how it's going to be, and others don't want restrictions. They want just a loose guideline of what's going on the page, and then and we've dealt with both types. And so my script writing was very by the book. I read Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis and did pretty much exactly that. And then I Googled, because there's tons of comic scripts and like movie scripts online that you can look at. And Kevin Smith has like a lot of his stuff available for you to see. And so I did it like by the book. It was like very much, you know, the first panel was very structured. That's me. And Matt is sort of like, his method and my method are very much alike, but there's a little bit of differences, because he's like all about Google Docs and Google Sheets, and everything has to be shared in one spot. And his method for writing scripts was a little bit different than what I was used to, and it took a while for me to get used to it, because I thought, I don't know if I like this, but now I don't know any different. So
I need a spreadsheet for everything. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, and the thing is, the reason why I'm so big on that is that, I mean, right off the bat, we said Steph's in California, I'm in Florida. We currently are working with artists in India and Brazil. And the last thing we want to be doing is, oh, did you get the email that I sent with revision 17.6B subset L? No, we don't want to be doing that. We want to be able to have everything in real time. Our scripts, like, I leave it up on my desktop 24/7. It's up on my phone. I can see when stuff pops in. I can see when the artists pop in. If there's an issue that needs to be corrected, it's corrected in real time right there on the script. We keep, when we are not, you know, going 25/8 every week, we'll even keep a log on there of like different squares. Hey, this is when we had the pencils turned in. This is when we had the final inks turned in. This is when we had the colors turned in. And we used to have to do that because artists would be like, hey, well, I haven't gotten paid in a while from doing this thing. And I'm like, you can look at the sheet and see what you've turned in the last 2 weeks. You've turned in 2 pages. It's right there on the sheet.
Yeah.
But, you know, we know that we have to be efficient with our time, and we have to be very, very on top of everything, because if we're not, things are going to get away from us. When you have as many things going on as we do, you've got to be efficient. And that's one of the ways that we've saved a ton of time, is just putting everything right there in Google Docs and Google Sheets. If Steph and I want to go work on a script together, we just both pull up the same document and we'll talk the ideas through. And then one of us will go in and type it into the actual sheet, which is normally me. I'll be the one going in and doing the typing, but it's not because it's me writing the script. It's just because there's no need for us both to be in there trying to type at the same time. But it's really, really helped us to be able to consolidate those things and make sure we're efficient with all the scripts that we do.
Yeah.
It's nice too, because we've been in his car before, or like in a restaurant or something or somewhere, and we'll get, you know, a message from the artist with a page, and we can like pull up the script and look at it in a few minutes and have it be done. So that's nice.
That's really good, cool, because you need that kind of organization, because my goodness, you're literally touching on every time zone.
Yes.
Just say thank you for validating me. That's what it is.
No.
That's what it is.
Well, spreadsheets are everything.
Let me tell you, not just touching on every time zone. With our artist that's in India, he's 12 hours ahead of me right now, and 15 hours ahead of Steph.
Wow.
So normally I'll wake up in the morning, and one of the first things I'll do, I'm literally still waking up. I'll check in with him, just because I want to check in with him before he's getting ready to go to bed. Even though he's a night owl, I want to make sure that we've got FaceTime, and if that's when we have to do it, so we have to do it. I mean, I might check in with him when we get done with this live stream, because he might just be waking up and sees the notes that we gave him in the middle of his night. You know, we're the team that never sleeps. I mean, Steph and I don't sleep as it is, but we're the team that never sleeps too.
Seriously, I mean, there's something going on all the time. So with so you've got I've got my book here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Heirs of Isildur, is that Isildur?
Think about a seal that's walking through a door. Heirs of Isildur.
And then you've also got Tales from Nocturnia. You've got Misfitz Clubhouse, which is like way different from the other two.
Yes.
You know? And so one of the things that we love discussing here is team building. I completely understand now as I go along my own journey that, there's a certain amount of nepotism out there, and you almost have to, because you're kissing a lot of frogs before you hit a prince.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to working with a team. What has that been like for you guys?
I guess I'll
go first.
Yeah, sure. The way that we try and approach it is, obviously we know that the people that are working with us on our teams know where the buck stops. The buck is going to stop with myself and Steph, but we never want them to feel like all they're doing is just, hey, here's every single instruction that's out there and you have to draw exactly what we're saying, because we want them to feel like that they have helped to birth what they are doing as well. To me, one of the biggest draws to creating is that in this industry, you are birthing something. Like, you've got one of our books in your hand. If you've read through the book, you're like, you were able to take an adventure in that book. That's an adventure you never would have been able to take in your own mind if we would not have created that. And that's a wild thing to me to think about, that we literally created this thing that would not have existed without our creativity and whatnot. And we want the artists that are there to feel the same way. We are big on people that understand that they need to take responsibility before they get rewards. We've had situations in the past where people wanted all kinds of money up front. Oh, give me this money up front. No, listen, you have to show that you're going to do the job. We will pay you as often as you want, but we want to make sure that you are doing the job, because if we're paying you up front and then you decide to bail on us, which has happened before, now we are screwed, because we're going to have to either drop that title, which has happened before for us.
Wow.
Or we're going to have to come up with more money to fix it. And at that point, it's almost like the title's been soiled, because you don't want to, I've got to go back and redo these 10 pages that this artist did because he's out of the picture now. And we really look for artists that have a professional mindset, that really are invested and engaged in what we're doing, that want to take the journey with us, that want to rejoice in what's being done out there. We want to make sure that they understand that we really appreciate the things that they're doing. But they also have to understand that timelines and deadlines are super important, especially when they want more money from us. Because we're like, look, every day that this thing is late, you're costing us money. We had an issue a while back that was delayed so much that Steph had to miss a live appearance, because she was only going to be able to make a certain number of them. She had to miss a live appearance because she's like, I'm not going to go to this one if our issue's not out. She had to pay more money for a plane ticket because she had to buy it in a short window. And the artists at the time just didn't understand how much they were affecting our bottom line by them being slow. And we need people to understand that every time that they're asking us for something, or every time they're not doing something right, or they're delaying, they're not only hurting us, they're hurting themselves too, because that means that we have to either go find somebody else to do the rest of the job, or we've lost confidence in them. And that's what's really helped us. The more we've kind of grown, the more professional the artists are that we're working on. We're working with 3 super, super awesome artists right now. Probably no offense to the other artists we worked with, but as a team, these 3 probably are the best of a team we've ever had, all at the same time.
At the same time, too, we treat artists like they're human beings. We actually get to know them a little bit. We don't see them as just, work
The
for hire.
commissioned piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. We try to have a conversation with them about other things that are going on in their lives, get to know what they're. It's really fun too, because we have 2 artists in Brazil right now, and they'll send us pictures from like the towns they live in and stuff. And those are interesting things. Those are things I want to know. It's so vastly different from either of the places that we live in, and so it's just cool to see that the person that's drawing your creations, this is what they're surrounded by every day. And we do a fun thing we like to do, but we haven't had time to do lately. But a lot of times we will get with the artist. We'll actually get on FaceTime with them and read the script to them before they draw it. And like, we'll act it out and stuff. And it's just fun because it gets them excited about the project, and it lets them know that, hey, we're real people. You're a real person. We're all going to get along here, hopefully. And so that makes it fun.
That's really cool because to be able to have that kind of communication with everybody on your team, you kind of build up that shorthand, and then hope that they're available for the next project.
Hopefully,
Because
yes.
they've proven themselves to be reliable and showing up for work. That's really awesome. When it comes to writing, do you guys think in prose first, or do you go right for the script because you're kind of visual thinkers?
I can tell you that I think that from my perspective, I've learned how to compartmentalize the three different mediums of writing. When I say three different mediums, prose, comic script writing, and lyric writing, you can't get much more different than the three of those things. I would say prose and lyric writing are much more akin, because you want to be big and flowy and flowery and use, big words and exaggerate and such when you're writing prose, and you're doing the same thing in lyrics. In comics, it's completely the difference. And that's one of the things that when Steph and I first got together, that was one of the biggest things where she helped me out, is because she was the only thing she really knew at that point was comic writing. And I was the one that was over here trying to be a prose writer and a lyric writer and being like, yep, this stuff is comics. And she's like, yep, this stuff is not comics.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love telling Meredith, you can't use that big word here.
We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But Steph, how about you with your? Do you think visually first? Do you script it out? Do you have outlines?
I really do. And I think because my first love was always movies. And when I was a lot younger, I think movies was more of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in movie making in some way. And so I really envision it like it's a movie or a TV show. And I have to stop myself from that and slap my hand sometimes, because sometimes it works. It's good, like for the bones of the story. You can't really write a comic script that way for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And I think, and Matt tends to do that in a similar way too. We both think very big and have huge imaginations and think of it in a visual way. So normally, like when we're first starting to get the basic idea for a story, is we do like a sandbox where we just throw ideas in, and it's a mess. Like there's been times I've gone to our scripts in the beginning and I'm like, oh my God, there's a paragraph here, and then 4 rows down there's another couple of words that we mentioned, or somebody's name, or
she'll be like, you tell me which tab and which paragraph to go to, because I can't make heads or tails of this crap. You tell me where I'm going.
It's horrible at first, but it does get nice and concise at some point. But
sorry about that.
We just tend to throw all the ideas in however we're thinking of it, even if it's a sentence here or there, or somebody's name, or like a quote or anything, and then we try to make it actually look like somewhat of a comic script. But yeah, we definitely think visually first.
The one thing though that is similar between writing prose and writing comics, and even writing visually, like if it was a TV show for us, is that we always try to think about what's the concept, what is the climax, what is it going to take to get from this point to this point. And we always try to say, how are we going to write backwards to go from this climax, this end point, to make sure that we have the little pieces, so that when you go forwards, you're ensured that you can know that there's a trust. There's going to be a payoff at the end of this arc. And that's a huge thing to us, because we want to make sure that if somebody's going to invest their time in what we're doing, there's going to be a point to it. It makes me crazy, like when you watch a TV show or you read something and you're like, oh man, this is really cool, I really love it. And you get to the end and it's not really an end. You're like, they really didn't think this end out very well. This end kind of sucks. And then you feel cheated. You feel like you've wasted your time because this thing didn't go anywhere. And we want to make sure that nobody ever has that feeling with what we do. You look at Tales from Nocturnia. We knew where Tales from Nocturnia and its most base point was going to go from the time we decided to actually do it. And we knew where all the big, massive plot points were going to take us. And it was fun making sure that we built up to it. There are some things in issue 1 of Tales from Nocturnia that got paid off in the middle of issue 2 that we were throwing the breadcrumbs out there the entire time. And we knew nobody was going to catch it. Then when it happened, they went back and looked and were like, those freaking bastards. There's 15 little hints that this was going to happen. I didn't even realize it the whole time. And that's what we like to do, because that's what makes the story fun and interesting, where you can go back and look at it and go, holy crap, I'm reading this and getting a whole different feel for this story now, because they had this other subtext that was going on the entire time until they decided they needed to cash it in.
I love that, because a lot of people, especially when they're starting to write, they have a great beginning. They know how it's going to go. They have a great ending. And a lot of times it just gets really messy in the middle, you know? And so what you said, working your way kind of backwards, is a really fun writing technique too for a lot of people who have that problem, you know, because it's like, well, I have this great ending. How did I get there? What's that next step? And then you write, and then you go, well, how did I get there? And then you hopefully it finds itself in the middle for this story. But I love the idea of the breadcrumbs, because then
the foreshadowing,
yes, because that captures everybody's attention and it kind of leads them to read it again.
Well, one of the neat things that we did was for Heirs of Isildur, there's the first arc, which is the Crossroads Conundrum, which was originally written as an ebook that turned into an illustrated novel that turned into a comic, which is the graphic novel you have. Then there is a one-shot piece called Nightmare Scenario, which is a bridge issue between the Crossroads Conundrum and the arc that is coming up called The Perilous Prospects. And it's really fun if you watch the way that this thing has progressed, because I wrote the entire arc for the Crossroads Conundrum before Steph and I even met. However, what you have in your hand, the version of the Crossroads Conundrum that is in your hands, Steph's fingerprints are not only all over that, but there are certain plot points in there that the way I had it originally written is not the way that it actually ended up becoming in the book, because she's like, do you know that you started this thing off in the first few issues and it just completely disappeared? You've got to get this thing resolved. And we had to go back and rewrite some stuff to resolve it. Now with Nightmare Scenario and the Perilous Prospects, even though I had all the notes for it, I didn't want to write that, what we have now, on my own. I literally was like, hey, here's the digital file. Here is everything that is there. Let's figure this out together. And one of the biggest problems that we had with Nightmare Scenario was, even though it's its own story entity, it picks up literally at the moment that the Crossroads Conundrum ends. There were so many spots where that story could start. I was like, every day I'm like, what if we started here? Well, what if we started here? Well, what if we started here? And Steph's like, you've got to pick one and just roll with it. But it was not possible for us to do that until Nightmare Scenario came up, because Nightmare Scenario actually was supposed to be in the Perilous Prospects. We knew when we did the second metal album, the vinyl and all that, we knew we needed to do a Heirs of Isildur comic that went along with it, because it had been too long since the trade. People were waiting for some questions to be answered. And we said, okay, this one section from Perilous Prospects could easily be pulled out and be a one-off story. As soon as we did that, we could expand on that one story. And then what we were left with for Perilous Prospects, we're like, this is going to be so easy for us to be able to work now, because we removed this one piece and we're able to really focus in and just jump right in to everything that's going to happen in the Perilous Prospects right off the jump, without having to worry about answering too many questions from Crossroads Conundrum, while still answering those things as we progress forward.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to take a little bit of a break. For everybody who's tuning in, we are Raging with Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. They've got Misfitz Clubhouse and a bunch of other things that are on their website. Those links where you can follow them are in our show notes. Make sure you follow them everywhere. Just don't peek in their windows, okay? It's kind of weird. Don't do it. and for our little bump, we've got Little Bastard Promos. That's right. It is a Facebook group that is public, and you are more than welcome to do some shameless self-promotion. Get over there. That's how Nita and I grab your links so that we can share it out to multiple channels and platforms. Get over to Little Bastard Promos on Facebook and drop your links. We're getting back here to Matt and Steph. One of the things that I really appreciated when I met you at a Comic-Con was the fact that I'm looking at all of your books. You had walls, walls of books, a table full of books. And I'm just like, dude, I've never read your stuff before. Where do I start? And because of our Facebook connection, knowing that I'm a prose writer, you're like, you probably like the prose stuff, right? A little wordy maybe, and this and that, like that whole story arc. And I was just like, yeah. And then you were like, do this book. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, the fact that your stuff and that you can talk to people who are new to you and say, well, what do you like to read? What is your reading style? Those are all like questions that I rarely hear anybody ask. Rarely. Most of the time it's just like, here, buy my books, or yeah, it's just sitting there. And I can't stand it when people look bored to be at their own table.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
You guys don't do that. It's like so high energy. How in the world do you keep up? And please tell our audience like how important that is to be engaged.
Matt is such a good salesman for the exact reasons that you said. Is he really we kind of try to gauge, because sometimes you get those people that kind of meander by your table and you can kind of get the impression that they're just looking, they don't want to be bombarded or harassed right away. And so we give them some time. Sometimes we'll do talk. We try not to do small talk all the time because people get disinterested really quickly with small talk, but you can kind of tell, and we've done enough shows now that we can gauge that fairly well. But Matt is so great at being so personable and getting somebody to open up. He probably would be a great interrogator or something, because he gets people to, I mean, there's been so many times that we've had somebody come up to our table and we somehow find out that they're a teacher or something, there's something that we can relate what they do back to what we do. And based on that, give them a really good recommendation. Or he'll pick up on a shirt that they're wearing and say, oh, I see that you're, wearing a Cthulhu shirt. Well, we've got, a story in, Cthulhu. And so it's there. He's just very perceptive about picking up on those little things and being real personable with people. And the two of us together tried to tag team that as much as we can. But we don't want people to, our two main things are, we're not carnival barkers. I know that works for some people, but I don't feel like that's a very fair way to sell what your stuff is.
No, and it turns a lot of people off.
Yeah, I will walk right past somebody if they do that to me. I know that there are people that will buy their stuff if they do that, but you're not getting to know the creator at all. And chances are that person might buy something because they feel pressured, but they're not going to come back and they're not going to continue to support that creator. We won't do that at all. We may joke around with somebody, but we're not going to harass them. We're not going to make them feel bombarded or overwhelmed. And we've gotten to know some really cool people that have come up to our tables, and they'll tell us their stories. And there's just fun things that end up happening when you engage with somebody and you take the time to actually let them know that you're there because you care. I mean, there's most of the shows that we do are on the East Coast. So I'm almost always traveling. I'm traveling like every 4 to 8 weeks. And so I've already invested a lot of time and effort to get there. And we've invested a lot of time and effort to set up the booth and to travel, because normally we still have to travel to get to where we're going, and set up and pay for a table and pick out our outfits and figure out how we're going to coordinate and all of that. And so we're there. We need to make it an experience. We need to make it worth our while and their while.
Well, and the thing is too, is like, you never know what the thing is going to be that's going to draw somebody in. So why would you take the chance that one thing is not going to draw them in? What I mean by that is, like, now Steph and I try to make sure that we dress as twins as much as we can at shows, because as you can tell, we look very similar. You put the same clothes on us, you can't tell us apart.
It's the beard.
When we did GalaxyCon Raleigh, now all of our steampunk stuff, all of our wild outfits we wear are literally like right over here. I've got a big long rack in my garage with all of our big outfits on there. So I'm basically the fashion coordinator for what we do.
He is.
Like, so we'll be like, hey, we have a 3-day show. Okay, so let me see. We have to do this, and we have names for outfits. I'm like, let me get a Thanksgiving, and then 70s disco, and then pajama party. What do we think about these outfits? And you never know what's going to catch somebody's eye. We were at GalaxyCon Raleigh, and we had pajama party on, which is a super fun outfit that we have. I think that the picture that you guys used of us
Yeah,
in,
we're
in the opening
yeah.
might be Pajama Party from GalaxyCon. So we were.
It was definitely a recent one. Let's just pop that up there.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the
It is.
Pajama Party. That is the Pajama Party outfit from GalaxyCon Raleigh, I believe. So we're at our table doing our thing, and Giancarlo Esposito was a guest there. And Giancarlo was, I don't know if you've ever seen him at a show, he is like A-list actor, but also A-list fashion icon. And
He dresses
we're at our table doing our thing, and Giancarlo just walked past, and he just, you guys look good.
Oh, crap.
I
Both
was like,
he literally,
good.
he stopped and he kind of like walked back and took a double take as you guys look good. We're both like, what? What are you talking about? That is awesome. But that just goes to show you never know how many people that actually come up to your table think the same thing. Hey, these guys are really put together. There's an intentionality to what they're doing. So that must mean something. These guys didn't just happen to be there by accident, and they really actually care about their presentation. Mm-hmm. So if they care about the way they present themselves, maybe how they present themselves in their creations are the same way. You never know what's going to draw somebody in. So why take that chance?
Wait, by the way, everybody should have their own Matt at a show, because not only is he fashion coordinator, but he's also makeup artist because he does my makeup.
There's that rock star coming into play.
Steph will have her makeup case. It's got like 6 to 8 palettes in there, and she's like, "Which ones do you need?" I'm like, "Give me this one, this one, this." And I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna do your eyeshadow today. It's gonna be like bright green and orange and blue and silver."
And I'm like, whatever. I don't even know. A lot of times I'm like, I'll just look in the mirror afterwards because it's just that level of trust. Like, do it. Go ahead.
Got to make it match the clothes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And there are some funky clothes too. I've seen those. I'm like, oh my God. How are you not dying in them sometimes?
It is completely evolved. If you look at how we dressed on the very first show that we ever did together, which was a steampunk show. And so we were in full steampunk. I mean, I was in the corset and the skirt. And I did that for maybe 2 shows, and I love the way that looks. I love the way steampunk clothes look. They're beautiful. Mm-hmm. I love the way corsets look on women and all of that. But I can't. It's not conducive to being at a show and
all day long.
My God! And the boots. And if I'm like going underneath the table to get a book or something, it's not. And so I told Matt, I'm like, we need to kind of figure out a compromise here. And so it sort of evolved into like this wild, I don't even know how it evolved into that, but it did. I mean, there's literally shirts that we wear that look like a pattern from like a 70s couch that your grandma had or something.
For real.
But we still do the goggles and he'll do the top hat so that it still has that steampunk vibe. But we just wanted to be different. Because actually, when we go to the steampunk shows, we don't stand out unless we're in something like that. So and we want to stand out.
And it's really a challenge for writers because a lot of times artists at the conventions, they have the table and they could be doing commission work. So people are like kind of ogling what they're doing and kind of looking through their portfolio. For writers, it's just like, yeah, I wrote a thing, and how do you get their attention? And I see the mistake so many writers do when they're at these events, where they look bored. They really do. They might be sitting back on their chair, they look at their phone or something, totally not engaged. And, that's not conducive to selling. In fact, if you look bored to be at your table, why do I have a reason to come over to you and talk to you?
Yeah, you can't expect somebody to get excited about your stuff if you're not excited about
it. And people are making impressions of you before they even approach you.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Like, before that first word is even spoken, it's already in my head. We're already 15 seconds in, and you've got about 30 to sell me.
I can tell you, we had an experience that happened over the summer, and then I just had the same thing happen on our side at the last show I was at. So the 2 different things, we were at AwesomeCon in DC, and we were there with Andrea Molinari from Scout Comics and Richard Rivera from Scout Comics, but also from Stabity Bunny. Stabity Bunny has got a very, very simple setup at cons, but it works more than I couldn't even imagine. He literally is in a gold mine with the way his display works. And Richard was at the Scoot Comics area myself and Steph and Andrea were at the combined Scout Stabity Bunny Insymmetry Creations area. And we had so many people walk by and go, okay, I've walked past you guys 5 times. You need to tell me what Stabity Bunny's all about. And I mean,
they love
were just
the title.
like,
it's a catchy title. He's got the cute little stuffed bunny. And so it's
they've seen it. Like you said, they've walked past, they've seen the thing. It caught their eye. They weren't sure if they wanted to go up and talk about it, but after a while they decided, hey, I'm going to go do this. When I was at the steampunk show that we just did, normally Steph and I do this one together, but this time I ended up doing it solo. There were so many people, and it's really weird because we've done this show before. There were so many people that walked up and they're like, I've seen you at 5 or 6 shows. I've never stopped at your table. I decided today is the day that I do it. Tell me about what you have. And there was like,
we're like, why have you never stopped before? What?
There were like 4 or 5 people across this weekend show that said that. And I'm like, this is so weird that it's all happening at this show at this time. Maybe Steph is just too big and intimidating and they felt more comfortable talking to little old wallflower me without her there.
Resting bee face or something. I don't know.
But again, it was they had enough visual to be able to be intrigued without talking to us, that once it finally was, you know what, I finally got to go up and figure this stuff out. They did. And I think almost all of them ended up buying something at that show. And I'm like, glad you bought something now if you didn't buy it the last 5 times you saw us, but without having the display ability, they never would have done it.
That's amazing too, because that's one of the things that I try to tell people is stay uncomfortable, right? You're always on a learning curve. What's going to work? And I'm sure that you guys is organized as you guys are. I'm kind of a little bit jealous here. When I'm sure you take notes of the different conventions, like what works, what doesn't, and things like that. I mean, that's really important because what works in one demographic may not work elsewhere.
Oh,
we do a post-mortem for after every show.
Normally post-mortem, I love it.
We do. That's exactly what we call it. And it's normally in the car if we're driving, to get home or get to the airport or whatever it is. And we'll just break down, okay, what did we do good at this show and what did we not do so well that we need to try and do differently next time. We do that with almost every show.
What was the crowd like? I mean, we know the difference between is it a steampunk show? Is it a horror show? Is it a metal show? Is it a pop culture event or is it a comic event? We tried to make sure all those things are charted. How much was the table? How much was the lodging for it compared to how much do we have the possibility of making? Like, I can tell you right now, without getting into too much detail, we know that the show that we did where we made the most money off of our table, we probably lost the most amount of money because of so much expense just to get there.
That's how it goes. It's life of comics.
That's really difficult. And again, we kind of touched on it a bit at the beginning that it is a business. And when you're first starting, a lot of people, they see a lot of these different Kickstarters that are making like 5-6 figures and like, I want that. And they think it's easy. A lot of people who aren't in the industry, they think comic books is just for kids. Oh, it's just pictures and words. What, how hard is it? And they don't really understand like the blood, sweat, and tears that kind of goes into not only creating the thing but selling the thing. I mean it's really hard. And like, so Misfitz Clubhouse is completely different from what you're doing as far as feel, demographic, and things. What in the world were you guys thinking?
So, this is actually a really interesting story. So Richard from Scout Comics, a really good friend of ours, and he really encouraged us for quite a while to, hey, I think you guys, I know your personalities. I think you guys would do really good at writing a title that was more geared towards a younger crowd. And he really encouraged us to do it. And we had tried for quite a while to get one together. And we were really trying. We have a guess what? We have a spreadsheet of all these other story ideas that we haven't really developed. And we tried to work one out and it just wasn't hitting the right way. And one day we're like, let's go back and look at this thing again. We have this one over here that we started. Why don't we retool it just a little bit about and make it about MEEKY and STIG? And that's the boy and the girl that's in this story. And I was like, okay, quick, give me an animal. Give me an animal right at the top of your head. And she's like, a ferret. I'm like,
I love ferrets.
I said, that's cool because I'm going to pick Sloth. And so literally right off the bat, it's going to be Meeky, Stig, Fairy, and Sloth. That's the 4 characters in Misfitz Clubhouse. And we basically just get to say, okay, as you can tell from this interview, Steph and I are fun-loving people. We laugh a lot. We joke a lot. We are just knuckleheads. And we wanted to have a story that allowed us to be able to kind of vent a lot of that stuff, since we get to do a lot of the very serious, deep stuff and death metal and all this. Wanted to be able to have that release and that outlet, and that's where Misfitz Clubhouse came in. And it's every story that's in this genre is about, kids and imagination. If you say oh, it's about kids and their imagination, well, that's literally every story there. But these kids, they take it to the extreme. Their imagination is so extreme and so wild, and the things that they do, they take the most mundane thing and make it the biggest adventure known to man. The first story we ever wrote for them is called I Don't Want Any Asparagus. It's in Scoot Frontiers #1. And we blew up how Meeky didn't want asparagus so much, how incredibly insane she went about what she would do. Like, I wouldn't eat it if I was a pirate. I'd make the asparagus walk the plank. If the asparagus factory was on fire, I wouldn't put it out. Shows them like saving a kitten out of a tree in front of the burning asparagus factory. And you've got like, the asparagus, with their faces, help me, hanging out of the factory.
Oh no.
But, that's the kind of stories we want to tell with Misfitz Clubhouse. Their imagination is so big, they may be affecting the world around them just because of how intense they are with their imagination.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Now, so I have to ask, are some of these characters based on people you know?
They are. We get that question a lot. There's aspects of all of them, and some of the catchphrases that they use that are based on a lot of different people that we know. And of course, Meeky's got her big crazy hair. I've got curly hair, so we my hair was like that when I was that age, pretty much. So that's a little bit inspired, but there are aspects of their personalities that are reminiscent of people that we know, but not one single person. But there are a lot of catchphrases. Like there's one thing that one of the characters says in Pinball Madness, which is one of the stories in what we're offering with this Kickstarter, that was a catchphrase that my dad used all the time. And so it's just to honor him, there's some things like with Matt's brother that he says. And so there's like little aspects that's just kind of fun. Just whatever we think will fit, we put in.
Yeah. If you look at the pages that you have up right there, that's actually two of the pages from Pinball Madness. And the very first thing that Meeky says in there is, crumb bums. And that was an expression that my late brother used to use because he would try not to curse. And one of his non-curse words was crumb bums. So we always try to find little nods that we can throw in here, little Easter eggs, little fun things like that. And we get that in the story, something that Steph's dad said in here. We always try to find ways to get some fun little nods to people in everything that we do.
One of the things that I appreciated, and this was, I think, on a thread in Facebook where we were talking about all ages, not talking down to kids, not creating dialogue that makes them feel stupid for reading it. I know that's harsh, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people kind of use like the baby words and the things like that. But I have heard of
dumb it down and make dumb kids.
And yes. I've heard so many creators who are like, no, I picked up this book when I was young and it prompted me to read and it made me look at the dictionary if I didn't understand a word. I appreciate that you guys are doing that, where you're making it fun, but you're not dumbing it down. That's so important.
Yeah, we wanted a good mix where if a parent reading this with their kid or to their kid, that the parent isn't feeling ridiculous when they're reading it out loud or just kind of trailing off because they're getting bored because it's just so rudimentary. So we wanted to have it a little bit like that. And also if, a child that's learning to read picks this up, they're going to be able to understand it. But also if a 12-year-old wants to read it, there's nothing wrong with that. And they're going to enjoy it too. And they're not going to feel like it's too babyish.
And if you're almost 50, you can enjoy it too.
You
That's
better
what we
enjoy
hope.
it too.
That's what we're hoping. We say
we always
0
say,
to 80.
Yeah, if you're a kid, you're a kid at heart. And we did a podcast last night, and the interviewer was saying, you know, oh yeah, the thing there, I remember that, harking back to my days of having the clubhouse in the backyard, or playing pinball. I remember doing that. That's the kind of nostalgia that we want to have in these stories, where if, you know, you can think back to those things you used to do when you were younger and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could go back and play that pinball machine again. I really wish I could go do this thing. Or I remember when this thing happened, where there's a connection for the adult and there's a connection for the younger reader. And like you said, Meredith, this is definitely not something where somebody's going to go, oh, this is Blue's Clues, and if I'm over 5 years old, I'm going to be outside of the reading level.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reading level, and there is no enjoyment level for Wreck-It Ralph or Toy Story or Fairly Odd Parents or Gravity Falls. You can watch those things or enjoy those things at any age, and that's the demographic we're trying to hit here. I've done a lot of soccer coaching in my life, and a lot of youth soccer coaching. And I would always find that the minds I would resonate with on the field were those that were like, say, 8 years old to like 14 years old, in that range, because kids that were younger than that, I had a hard time. It wasn't like I couldn't have fun with them, but you could start to connect on a mental level. You could tell that they were starting to smell what you were cooking when they got to like that 8-year-old level. They could start understanding the strategy and the things like that. So that's like, for me, that's where my wheelhouse is, if I'm going to be writing in that age group. And I feel like the way that Steph and I are constructing not only the stories that are here in this issue, but the other ones that are going to be coming up, all fit into that realm. They're experiences that you can understand and you can relate to, because you've probably been there yourself, and they're just told in a way that's fun that you can all laugh at.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, when you saw yourself kind of cartoonized for the first time, what was that like?
Oh my gosh, this was so hilarious too, because RAHIL, so the artist for this is RAHIL MOHSIN. He is an incredibly talented artist in this genre. He does a lot of all ages titles and related art. And he just has such a good flair for it. I mean, you really look at his art and you go, I could see this animated. And so we gave him a little bit of freedom. We sent, you know, he knows what we look like. We sent him pics. And Matt's big thing was, he said, okay, Steph and I always, like we were talking about earlier, we always match. So,
yep,
you know,
got the pants here.
And match. And we didn't know he was going to do purple pants and mustard yellow. So
like,
now we say we're going to find that outfit and try to find something like it. But he really, I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, I've got like clown shoes on, I think. I don't know why my feet are so big. But it's so much fun when you see an artist rendition. One of the big things that we do, and we are offering it with this one, is we do Draw Me In tiers. So
fun.
Somebody can actually pledge and be drawn into our books. And we've done it with every campaign that we've done. We've done it with pretty much every title now as well. And so for this one, not only do we have Pinball Madness, but we have another short called Dress Up Mess Up, which is seasonally appropriate. It is a shorter story, but it's a bonus story that's in there where the kids are excited to go trick-or-treating, and there is one of them that is hesitant to go for some very stubborn reasons, and they have to kind of resolve that. So we do have offering a tier so that somebody can be drawn into that story, which of course, with it being Halloween night, there's endless possibilities for some fun with that.
Oh yeah, we can't wait to do some of the things we want to do to some people in there, just because it makes it fun. The last issue in Heirs of a Sealed Nightmare Scenario, people got to get zombie headshots.
Yeah,
we've had people get drawn into steampunk festivals. We've had people become medieval demons in Tales from Nocturnia. We've had people be lookouts and scribes in Tales from Nocturnia. We want to just have fun with what we do and give people a reason to want to be like, yeah, look at this. I'm in this comic and you're not. Look at how cool I am here.
It's so fun too. Is we have one friend that she specifically said that she wanted to be evil. She's like, I don't care what you do with me. I just want to be the bad guy. So we're like, okay, you got it. And we did. We made her pretty badass.
That would be me. I'd be like, yes, yeah. I want to be the slayer of things. I don't care if it's bugs or whatever, or the creepy kid in the playground. But now, so there are 2 stories within this book, within the 24 pages. What was the idea behind that?
So originally, when we started scripting out the stories for Misfitz Clubhouse, they were going to be just features in Scoot Frontiers magazine for Scout Comics. And we wanted to make them all kind of shorter, just so that way they could all fit into the framework of Scoot Frontiers. But we just had such a positive response over the summer from everything that was going on Misfits wise. We're like, you know what, we need to not only get a full length issue out, we need to do it now. We need to get this out there so people can say, hey, I've got a Misfits Clubhouse issue, not just Scoot Frontiers. It's still going to be a part of Scoot Frontiers. That's what the intention is always to be there. But we started writing this story, and we never intended on Pinball Madness to be as long as it is. It was just
which is a common theme with us, by the way.
It was just it's funny to think that a story that is 16 pages is a long story, but in the universe of Misfits Clubhouse, that is an enormous story, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. And the way that we gauge it, we didn't say we're going to write a 16-page story. We thought it was going to be about 10 pages, but we were like, what we want to tell in here and the way that the art is coming out, it's going to do the story a disservice to be 10 pages. Maybe it's going to be 12. Oh, you know what? Maybe it needs to be 14. You know what? Maybe it needs to be 16. And that gave us the ability to comfortably tell the things that need to be told in the story without rushing through it. Dress Up Mess Up did not need that same treatment. Dress Up Mess Up was always going to be about the length that it is right now. And we knew to have a full length issue, we needed to have multiple, we needed to have a certain number of pages. So that's why, like, you know what, we'll just put both of these things in this issue so that way people can understand, hey, Misfits Clubhouse is not this ongoing thing like Heirs of Isildur or Tales from Nocturnia, where if you pick up Tales from Nocturnia 2 and you've never read anything else, you may have no idea what the heck is going on. If you picked up Heirs of Isildur 8 and you had no idea what else was going on, you'd be like, fill me in here, people. But with this, we believe that you're going to be able to pick up pretty much any Misfits Clubhouse story, be able to enjoy it without feeling like you're missing something because you didn't read I Don't Want Any Asparagus or Pinball Madness or anything like that. Now, there might be some very small minor story threads that go through there, but they're not going to be something that takes away from the enjoyment of the individual story that's out there.
Well, it harkens back to what Steph was saying about, like your beginning with the short comics.
Yes.
Does it ever feel like it's when it comes to writing the story, like, does it ever feel like it's too short, it's too long? I know that Matt just touched on that a little bit, but with every story, there's some people who, again, with that whole structure idea, right? And we're past our hour. I hope you guys can stay with me for just a little bit. That whole structure thing, it's like, no, every single one of these has to be like 12 pages. It has to be 12 pages and stuff. And sometimes the story doesn't really allow for that. So is this kind of your free pass?
It happens a lot, and it's kind of funny too, because there's a lot of times, and Matt's a little bit more guilty of it than I am, because he tends to write a little bit more wordy than I do, where he'll say, oh, I think this story is going to be this many pages, and I'm like, okay, sure. I just know now that it's not going to be. We try though, we really try though, but that's just the thing. If the story is not allowing it, if the story needs to be told, it's going to take however long to tell the story without getting,
without feeling rushed or ridiculous.
Yeah. And I feel like with Misfits though, we do a better job. I mean, Pinball Madness became longer than we expected it to, but I feel like we're able to rein that in. It's a lot easier with all ages because you don't have all these intricate, tales that you have to weave and storylines that you have to go by and character arcs to make sure getting, completed. So it's a little bit easier, but yeah, we tend to get a little wordy sometimes.
Well, and like she said, when you've got like longer stories, like we can tell you right now that the next issue for Heirs of Isildur is most likely going to be a 40-page issue. We already know for a fact it's going to be a minimum of 40 pages, and that's the first part of a multi-part arc. But we know it's going to be meaty. We always want to make sure that, especially in the Kickstarter market, because if you were like, hey, I'm going to go get Spider-Man from the local comic shop, I'm going to get one of those every 2 weeks or every month. So if an issue breaks right in the middle of a storyline, it's not that big of a deal because you're going to get the next piece of the continuation the next month and the next month and the next month. When you're backing a Kickstarter, you're paying a higher price normally because you're helping to put it out there, you're helping to fund it. And you also know that the break between issues is going to be 3 to 4 months at minimum for a specific title, sometimes even longer. And we're like, we really want to make sure that people actually feel like they've got some meat to sink their teeth into, and they've got enough to be able to tide them over for the time being, and also enough to feel like, you know, hey, I've got enough storyline that now I really want to know what happens next. Not like I was just getting into it and I'm not even sure if I care about the storyline yet because they stopped me 20 pages in.
Yeah. And that's so important too, because you guys are so busy, you're always on the fringes of consciousness, you know, on social media and things like that. Even when you're in between, you know, just because a Kickstarter is done doesn't mean the work is over. There's always the next project that you're working on, and making sure that you kind of stay relevant in the market. That's hard. And that takes like determination, definitely stubbornness, maybe a little bit of insanity. I don't know.
A lot of insanity.
And
A lot of insanity.
And then
in fact,
on top
I
of
think
it,
we're getting more insane as we go on.
and then on top of it, I think the thing that grounds you, Steph, is I see you, you know, posting pictures, and it's like god awful early in the morning, and you're going for a run on top of everything else.
How in the fuck is she doing that?
Oh,
Like,
it's
what in
it's
the
crazy.
world?
I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go and run 5 days
Yeah.
a week, and then we're staying up late.
She's 3 hours behind me, and she's up in the morning normally before I am. Like
Before
6 days a
him.
week. Like 6 days a week, she's up earlier than me, which is completely insane.
You know, they say that energy is wasted on the young, but I think you guys have tapped into it, and we need to get out of here. But so I appreciate you guys for being in here. For anybody who's tuning in, make sure that you go to insymmetrycreations.com and you can see their other titles. Then also head over to Kickstarter for Misfitz Clubhouse. It's an all ages book, but it's for the young at heart. It's for everybody. Make sure that you go check that out. You know, there's a misconception that an all ages book is really for kids, and it's not if it's done well. And you guys seem to be really hitting the mark there and having a lot of fun with it, and we appreciate that. So let's get these guys to their goal and get them to some stretch goals as well. 9 days to go. And when with the final question that I like to ask our guests is, if you were going to give one piece of advice to anybody new coming into the industry and really looking at this as a business, what would you tell them?
So I would tell them to have realistic goals, to literally every single day make a list of every goal that you can think of, whether it is a short-term goal for the day or a long-term goal of this is something I really want to have happen a year from now or 2 years from now. And literally check off, and this is something that Steph and I do every single day. Check off the things that you actually accomplish in that day. Make sure you've got some things that are quantifiable that you can actually accomplish. Because if you can look at the end of the day and go, I accomplished these 12 things, then you know that you actually are working towards those larger goals, because we all know a larger goal never happens all at once. A larger goal happens as you complete a series of smaller things. So chart the smaller things, understand where you want to go, but understand the things you can accomplish today to try and get there.
Steph, how about you?
I always say is, it sounds negative, but it's not. And it's actually a runner's mantra, and that's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to be okay with disappointment. And that doesn't mean that, you know, we're all in this, you know, feeling down and disappointed every single day, but inevitably there's going to be something that's going to happen that is going to discourage you. And what sets people apart are the ones that say, this is too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And they quit. If you go in knowing that that's going to happen and it's okay because it happens to everybody, there's no creator who has always gotten accepted to everything that they've done. Everybody's been rejected in one way or another. Everybody's had a bad review. Everybody's had a negative experience with somebody that's read their stuff and not liked it, or had a bad experience with an artist. It's going to happen, and it's okay, because normally when something like that happens and you rise above it and persevere, something better ends up happening. So just get comfortable with the fact that it's going to be difficult at times, And if you go in knowing that with that mindset, you'll be able to keep going and get to the really good stuff, because it does get good.
Well, the one thing too that I want to make sure that we communicate is about our Kickstarter campaign. If you're watching this and you're like, man, those guys sound really cool. I wish I would have caught them at Heirs of Isildur or that metal album that they did, or Tales from Nocturnia. We make sure that everything that we do in one way or another is available on any campaign that we do, because we don't think there's anything that we do that is completely incongruent with the other. Like, we don't do porn, but we're not going to be putting porn on a kid's book site. That's just nothing we would ever do. If you're somebody that wants to get those things, we had somebody the other night that was like, oh, I didn't realize that you guys actually do metal albums. And they bought a Misfitz Clubhouse issue and one of the metal albums.
Nice.
If there's something that you want, whether it be the digital packs or the books or the albums, you can get all those things through the campaign that's up there right now. If there's something that we have that you guys know that we do that you don't see either in the campaign or on the add-ons, message us and we'll make sure that we can make a tier for you or find a way to get the add-on done for you, so that way you can get the things that you want. So whether you like Misfitz Clubhouse or you like the medieval or you like the steampunk or the metal, there's a way for you to go up there and enjoy the campaign and consider the campaign while also getting some of the things that we've previously done as well.
That's awesome. And we appreciate you guys for being here and telling us about your creative journey. That's right. Misfitz Clubhouse is on Kickstarter right now. And we've even got your Bandcamp link on the show notes. So anybody who's looking at the description, you guys, if you want to see, get a sneak peek into, what it is that they do, check out all of their links and follow them everywhere. Hey, Nita, should we have them say the final words? Yeah. So do me a favor, guys. I need you to say, throw my dudes.
You ready? He wants to say this at the same time?
Sure.
Okay. You ready, Steph? 1, 2, 3. Throw my dudes.
That was terrible. That was awful.
Oh, do it again.
Throw
my dudes.
Love it. We appreciate you guys, everybody. This has been RAGIN with Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. We are out of here. Have a great day and stay tuned. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Follow these guys everywhere and check out their campaign. We're out. Hey there. This is Meredith Loughran with RAGIN. And I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RAGINAVC.com for details and contact information. Hit the button.